All right, now we're going to move on to U.S. politics, starting up first with the House, Congress. So the National Defense Authorization Act, or the NDAA, one of the two must-pass bills before the 117th Congress ends on December 31st, was passed by the House late last week. This bill passed with significant bipartisan support. Democrats had 174 yes votes and 45 nay votes, and Republicans had 176 votes and 35 nay votes, and 2 not voting. The NDAA includes an approximate $817 billion top line for the Department of Defense and has another $30 billion for funding for the Department of Energy for nuclear activities. The Department of Energy is the department in charge of the nuclear arsenal, as well as disposing of its waste and that sort of thing. The nearly 4,000-page bill includes a 4.6 pay raise for service members and for civilian workers for the Department of Defense. It's a pretty decent pay raise. Doesn't include all the inflation that's been happening, but some of the inflation stuff is actually captured within cost of living allowances and adjustments therein. It also provides for equipment upgrades, new programs, new weapons programs, updated personnel policies, and an expansion of the Federal Firefighters Fairness Act to firefighters in the military, and investments in both the American domestic semiconductor industry and in science and technology and innovation, among other items. Part of the bipartisan effort for the bill was a secession by Democrats to include a provision rescinding the COVID-19 vaccine mandate for military members. It's really sad that politics has infected vaccine mandates. This is something I just don't like, man. All right, so for people that don't know, I was in the military for 7 years, and I got all kinds of shots because I deployed, and one of those shots is the smallpox vaccine. And the smallpox vaccine has way more possible side effects at a higher rate than the COVID-19 vaccines, be it J&J or AstraZeneca or Moderna. The smallpox vaccine, I don't know if you guys can see it. Yeah, right. That is the smallpox vaccine. And every person that deployed to Afghanistan had to get that. Every person that went to Korea had to get that because of the potential of smallpox exposure during a military exercise or a fight from possible North Korean aggression, and in Afghanistan, possible terrorist using a smallpox bomb or something like that, some sort of biological warfare. And no one batted an eye. But God forbid a new vaccine comes out and people get all worried about it, and it becomes a political issue where people in uniform can't trust their superiors to have their interest at heart and protect them from possible harm. So for me personally, I don't think the people that refused this vaccine, I think they should be still removed from the military, to be honest with you. But I don't think they should lose their pensions or be other than honorably discharged, right? It should be similar to like failing your physical fitness test. Military people know what I'm talking about. There's been people that have failed their physical fitness test on purpose to get discharged quicker. It's actually a fairly common thing, believe it or not, to get out quicker, because you fail like 2 or 3 and you can get out. Like if you're a 4-year contract, they can kick you out in like 6 months on that, especially if there's not a need for military personnel. And I think it should have been the same thing. You should be like, you're going to get this vaccine. No. Okay. 6 months later, up to 6 months later, you're gone. And you shouldn't have your benefits taken away. You shouldn't lose your pension. You should be allowed to medically retire early, like those sort of things. But I don't think it's actually bad that people were kicked out for this, because it's showing that you don't trust your military personnel or your commander in chief to have your best interests at heart with this vaccine. It's not this super experimental thing. And I don't see why people are like, oh, you're licking boot and you just do what you're told like a mindless drone. I'm like, no, this is about good order and discipline. And it is about having the ability to trust you to carry out your duties that are constitutionally acceptable, and you trusting your leadership to have your back. All 3 of those things are broken if you don't trust the vaccine and feel like you should not have to take it. Not just trust the vaccine, rather, but not trusting the vaccine, and at the same time not willing to take the word of your superiors that the vaccine is safe. It means you don't have trust, right? So how can we expect you to follow orders properly? Why would you want to be in the military if you don't trust your upper leadership echelons to have your interest at heart, to be protected. I don't think you do. And that's why I don't agree with the things that have been said online about this. But I guess that's a part for another day because we do have to go continue on. Now, 8 House passed NDAA provisions pertaining to extremism in the U.S. military or American society are also included. Most of the discarded provisions that the House included in its initial version of the NDAA sought information about the threat posed by groups such as domestic terrorists, criminal gangs, and organizations committed to advancing white supremacy or anti-Semitism. Usually those go hand in hand. If you're a white supremacist, you're going to be an anti-Semite. You don't have to be white and hate Jewish people. See Kanye. Of the 8 provisions, 7 were completely removed from the bill, though. The other House passed provision, which requires a report, was reduced in scope so it would discuss only foreign threats, not homegrown ones. Gutted completely, probably because Republicans wouldn't pass it with it. The military is a microcosm for everything that is within the United States, and it has, generally speaking, just because of the type of people that are more inclined to join the military, a more right-wing bent. Doesn't mean they're crazy QAnon conspiracy theorists or white nationalists or Nazis or anything, right? It just means that overall the military is going to bend more conservative. So if there's a problem within conservatism itself with white supremacy, anti-Semitism, Nazism, fascism, or what have you, those problems will exist in the military. Not only that, people do join the military in order to get the military training to bring that training back home to other groups. While I was in the military, there was a couple of things that happened where it was kind of seen that some of the people that had joined actually joined so they could take that information they gained from the military back home to train their people for gang warfare. I'm not making this up. They joined the National Guard, went to boot camp, got training in military tactics. They then went to AIT to get training in whatever, like usually advanced combat tactics or maybe like intelligence reporting and collection. And they took that knowledge with them after being trained and disseminated it across their network. Why wouldn't you want to root that out? I don't get it. Unless it's all politics, baby. You don't want to have your people found out. With that said, the final bill added just one section related to domestic extremists. In that section, there is a requirement for the Director of National Intelligence to assess how social media posts are used in screening personnel, including for extremist ties. So in other words, they're going to come out with a public post and be like, hey, we kicked these people off of the recruitment line. You know, people come in, sign up for the military, and then there's like sometimes anywhere between like 3 months to a year, depending on which branch and MOS you do. MOS being the job you do in the military, because trainings are done in cycles, right? So you could wait a long time to get your cycle up. And they're going to report about what kind of things get people removed in that process. We're going to give away all the secrets, everybody. We're going to tell people how to avoid having your little extremist ass found out before you're able to join the military. That's wild. It's what the fuck? Continuing on, though. The Senate blocked a critical bill to curb financial crime and corruption in the United States, a setback for what advocates have called the most significant reform to the country's anti-money laundering laws in 20 years. The Enablers Act would require trust companies, lawyers, art dealers, and others to investigate clients as well as the sources of money and other assets that are moved into the American financial system. A bipartisan group of lawmakers introduced the Enablers Act last year, citing the Pandora Papers, a collaboration by the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists and the Washington Post and other media organizations. Republican Senator Patrick Toomey, who was a ranking member of the U.S. Senate Banking Committee, was behind the move to strike the bill from the NDAA. They don't want you to have to report your taxes to the IRS. They want you to keep more of your own money for whatever reason. That's bullshit. That's not the reason why they're against these things. The reason they're against these things is because if you have people actually able to investigate where dark money is coming from, maybe some of that drug money is being laundered through the art dealer market, then it makes it easier to wash embezzled money, criminal money, etc. That's why they don't want it. They want people to be able to avoid their taxes, and they want their buddies to be able to slosh money through the financial system without getting caught. Continuing on, though, the Banking Committee plays an important role in advancing the fuller defense bill to votes in Congress. Senator Toomey retired last year, and his seat was won by a Democrat, John Fetterman, in Pennsylvania midterm election just last month. And the final version of the NDAA also does not include marijuana banking reform, a fact celebrated by Kentucky Republican Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell. Just as Republicans insisted, just as our service members deserved, this NDAA is not getting dragged down by unrelated liberal nonsense, McConnell said at the time. I mean, it isn't related to the military, but you're just a boomer, dude. Shut up. I just don't like the sticky icky. Shut up, McConnell, please. Senator Cory Booker, Democrat of New Jersey, blames McConnell's strong opposition for affecting Senate Republicans who are considering backing the marijuana banking reform. The reform would enable financial institutions to provide its services to legal marijuana businesses and also help those who were the most impacted by the war on drugs. Now, I think if you gutted out the provisions that would help people that were impacted by the war on drugs, just say it was just a straight banking, hey, banks, you can make money off of weed now, go at it. It'd probably pass more easily, as sad as it is. It would. I 100% believe that. McConnell would still probably be against it because weeds are evil. But it would pass. I think it would. There is slim hope now, though, of passing the bill as it stands, as a standalone measure next year. Because the Republicans will control the House, Democrats will have slightly more control in the Senate, but with a divided government, priority victories that are only going to be seen as like wins for the incumbent president going into 2024 are likely not going to be passed, which is why we call this a lame duck session.